Welcome, everybody. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and thank you for joining. Thank you, Michael and David, also for taking the time, and welcome to you. How is everybody?
Hi, good to see you all.
Doing great. Happy to be here.
Yep, looking forward to all the questions and what we can do about them.
Yeah, that's cool. So before you both maybe spend a few seconds introducing yourselves, I'll explain the concept. And I have an echo, so I hear myself. I don't know who it is. It's very faintly, but I can hear myself. Yeah, the concept is basically we have collected a couple of questions. The Slido link is still open, so I put it in chat as well. So if you are joining late and are wondering, oh, I didn't have time to submit my question, no worries. Use the Slido link that is in chat. Either use it now or use it or put it in later. No promises. If you just type your question in chat, if we have time, I'll try to keep an eye out and see if I can filter them through. But ideally, you put your questions in the Slido, and then we go through, and David and Michael will be answering the questions. Yeah, and that's basically it. It's very easy. Yeah, but before we do that, maybe David, do you want to quickly say a few words, who you are and what you do, before we dive in?
Sure. My name's David Allen. I lead the developer relations team here at Neo4j. Been with the company for about 4 years, and prior to working in developer relations, I was the global lead cloud architect and helped a lot of our customers build big solutions on the basis of Neo4j in the cloud. So I'm a practitioner and a developer, and I just love to do this stuff daily. Michael?
Yeah, my name is Michael Hunger. I've been with Neo4j also for a long time. Let me just unplug this microphone. So hope this still works. I've been with Neo4j for a long time, for 12 years, and have been leading DevRel, building a lot of integrations around Neo4j, running live streams, giving a lot of conference talks, building projects, and helping people in the community all these times. So that's me.
Cool. Yeah. With that, I think we can start. I've put the screen on, so it's visible now, and yeah, let's dive in. Have fun, everybody.
Okay. So as we're going through these, we're just going to take things right off of Slido here that you can see. If you use the link that Alex put into the chat, you're going to pop a new question up here live, and we'll take them in the order that we get them. So the first question comes from an anonymous user who's having trouble establishing connections with an ODBC driver. Now, I think what the user is referring to here is the Neo4j BI connector, which has an ability to connect to Neo4j using ODBC. So if you've never seen the BI connector, what it is it's a piece that lets you issue SQL queries against Neo4j databases and treat a Neo4j graph as if it is a set of relational tables. You can download the ODBC right here on our website. Now, unfortunately, when I was looking through this question before the event, I couldn't quite tell exactly what the connection error was. So the best I can treat this question is to give kind of like a couple of points about the most common issues that might arise. One of them has to do with the connection scheme. So frequently, you're going to want to be using the Neo4j plus S connection scheme. Some users who have used Neo4j for a while might use Bolt plus routing or the Bolt connection scheme. You're definitely going to want to use Neo4j plus S. The second thing is to inspect the error message and look for any evidence that it is a SSL connection error. Another common thing that comes up that prevents tool connectivity to Neo4j is using what are called self-signed certificates. If you use a default SSL cert that hasn't been issued by a trusted third party, sometimes the Neo4j tooling is going to have trouble with that because it simply can't prove that your connection is secure and authenticated. Other than that, I'm not exactly sure how to tackle this question because we would need to look at the particular error message. If the questioner is on the stream, maybe he or she can add what the error message is and we can follow with it. Is there anything that you would add on this one, Michael?
So I think what would be interesting is, I don't know if you know more about this, David, is does the ODBC driver support some error logs or so that you can start it in like debug version? So sometimes like an JDBC or ODBC driver allows to append something to the connection URL, and then it adds more like debug logging somewhere.
Yes.
I'm not sure if that's something that exists.
So the BI connector is produced by a company called Simba. They have a flag that you can put into the connection string called log level. And I think it's the flag is called log file location. This is in the documentation, but you can add log level like 6 and log file location equals a path to someplace on your drive, and then it will save full logs, which will include like all of the Neo4j driver messages. This is the way some of our field engineers and support engineers get really deep down into what's going on when there's a connection issue. That's definitely a good call out though. Like amp up the log level, look into the logs and figure out, if you're getting a generic connection failed message, you can always get underneath of exactly what the reason is.
Yeah, I guess that's also a good general advice also for the Neo4j bolt drivers for all the languages. So they all have a configuration setting which increases the log level. And so you get also debug logs. So if something goes wrong, sometimes there's a little bit more detail in the debug logs that gives you like an indication, or that you then can share with Aura support to give them more detail about what's going on your side as well, so they can correlate it as well.
Oh, I see. I am actually not logged into Slido. If you, so it's not going to let me mark this as answered right now, but we can go through and go to the next question.
Maybe I can slide in briefly here. So Michael, I think you create a faint echo. So maybe you can check your microphone settings. On the other side, there is a comment. I think on this question we just covered was I'm getting an error with the authentication with hostname equals localhost. Does that tell you anything in regards to the question or no?
Let me see if I can log into Slido and make sure that I can pull up that detail, because I can't see the sub item in here. It'll just take me just a second.
Yep, this was in Big Market Chat though. So
it was in Big Market Chat. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. Can you read that back one more time? I'm not seeing that message right now. It was about connection to localhost.
There's authentication with hostname equal localhost, and then he explained some more. Simba Neo4j 22, an error has been thrown from the Neo4j client. Could not run query Neo4j error. I'll post it in our restream chat because this is it's a bit much.
While we're covering this, I want to pull up one setting that could be related, and that is the default listen address within Neo4j. Right here. When you, let's see, his error is an error has been cloned from Neo4j client, could not run unknown function APOC version. Aha. All right. So, this is brilliant. All right. So the issue here is that if this user is on the stream, the issue is that you don't have APOC installed in your database. When the BI connector first starts up, it tries to run the APOC version function just to check that you have a compatible version of APOC, which is necessary for the BI connector to function. The error message that you're getting is unknown function APOC.version, and that almost certainly means not either installed APOC or properly configured APOC, which is a prerequisite for using the BI connector. In fact, the BI connector can't work without APOC, so the way that you would resolve this is install APOC and then make sure your configuration is set to whitelist the APOC procedures so that they can actually be called. But the good news is you actually can connect to the database otherwise, as far as getting this particular error message. So I'd recommend installing APOC.
Cool.
Hopefully that covers that one. The next question deals with how to delete a database and get back to a fresh and empty state. So let's say that you're using Aura, or even just using desktop, and you've loaded a bunch of test data into your database, and now you basically want to throw the database away and you want to get back to clean, fresh, empty state. Well, the first most obvious way of doing this within desktop is that you could delete the database, or in Aura, you could just completely destroy the database and then create a fresh one. In the case of Aura, that might not be what you want to do because, of course, you're going to get a different username, a different password, and a different connection URL. So that leads us to two extra ways that you can delete a database and just get back to that fresh, empty state. Michael, do you want to take
I'll
this
take
one,
this.
or you?
Yes, I
Go
will
ahead.
take it. So if you can just enable my screen, Alex, then we can show it. Thank you. So I just created a fresh Aura database and just created 1 million nodes, 1 million relationships, and 3 million properties in this one. So that's actually a good one also to show in general how you would kind of create large amounts of data. So imagine, so this is kind of an input stream of 1 million IDs. So you could also imagine that this comes from a CSV or JSON file or some other place, also or graph refactoring. And then what I do here is basically I run this as a batch transaction. So I do like 20,000 updates per transaction, basically. So of these 1 million IDs, basically 20,000 gets called in this subquery here, 20,000 at a time. So it batches basically the stream of 1 million IDs up into batches of 20,000 at a time. So it takes 50 seconds on Aura to create these million nodes and relationships with 3 properties. And now if you look at our data, we have like 1 million nodes and 1 million relationships. So there are two ways of cleaning out this database. So one way is just deleting the data that's inside of the database. So that's something that we can do similar to what we had here, which is the following. So we again say auto because we want to have these auto-managed transactions. And then we first find our relationships in the database. So which is kind of just find relationships, which is this relationship pattern. And I give the relationship a name R. And then I just say call with R and then basically delete R. So we kind of delete the relationships and then in transactions of 20,000 rows. And if I have not mistyped anything, that will start deleting all the relationships. And I think this needs to be on the same line. And so we should see now like the relationship counts going down. Okay. Then probably we take 10,000. So this is the smallest Aura instance, which should actually work because you just created all the data. That's weird. Okay, let's see. So something seems to be wrong or off here, actually, to be honest. So this would actually work out of the box. I'm not sure what's wrong here. I guess that's proper demo demonstration here. Okay, so then I can't show you actually the one way that you would do it. So basically what you would do, just to show you what you would do, you would say, I delete first the relationships in my data, 20,000 relationships at a time. And then I would do the same with nodes, basically that I then basically delete the 20,000 nodes, which has the advantage, no matter how many relationships a node has, you basically have always equal sizes of delete transactions. If you just find all the nodes and do something like detach delete here, then this would mean basically no matter if this node has 1 relationship or like 1 million relationships, it tries to delete it in 1 transaction with all the relationships. So you have some transactions that are really small and some that kind of just exceed your limits. And that's why kind of deleting relationships and nodes independently is more stable than here as such. But because Aura doesn't like us right now, so that's something that we'll report back to the team. I'm not sure what's going on here. The other option is when your Aura database is created, you get basically, so this is freshly created database, right? So you basically get an initial snapshot here. So that you have 2 options. So one is you just click on restore on your first snapshot in your list. So that should reset the database to its initial state. The other thing is you can also export this initial snapshot of an empty database basically into a file, and then use the import database and upload this empty dump file, which I just did here. So you can say, I upload this empty dump file. It's only 3 kilobytes, and then it will basically reset the database to this initial state as such.
Yeah, I personally like the list of snapshots that accumulates over time because it acts like a mini time machine for your Aura instance.
Yeah.
I mean, behind the scenes, what they're doing is they're taking a dump file of your database, and then when you say restore, it's pretty much the same as if you uploaded your own dump file.
Yeah. Exactly.
But obviously, like since your databases start empty and you have your little mini time machine, you can always reset to nothing by going back to its first instance.
Exactly. Yeah. The only drawback is they are only kept, I think, for, I don't know, 14 days or 7 days. I don't actually remember exactly. Actually, it's a good question. We can actually look at the Aura docs if they say something about managing instances, backup instance, update and restore. And does it say how long they are kept? Cadence, restore. Here. Snapshots are kept for 7 days in free and professional. So after 7 days, your time machine timeline kind of shrinks basically to the last 7 days on Pro. And so from my perspective, keeping an empty file around, an empty database file around on your local machine is probably safest, because if your restore of the first version is not there anymore, then it would not. You can only reset to the state that's in the list, basically. Right? So, but if we look at our instance now, so it still says loading. Let me just refresh this really quick. So we can probably go back in a minute or so and see basically that the database should now be empty and reset. So there should be no people around anymore, no relationships, and no ID property keys as well. So it should be a complete reset of the data here. So I'll check when we're done, and then I can report back. So that's kind of what I would do. But in general, there's also a knowledge base entry for this. So if you go to Aura and click on support here, there's a knowledge base, and there is something like delete, how to wipe out and delete all content in a database, which has a bunch of solutions, but empty dump file is here. And so you shouldn't, it's kind of not really well called out. So the bad way is doing this here, which kind of will affect your instance, because it tries to kind of do all in one go. But as it says here, basically upload the empty dump file, basically as such. That's in the knowledge base. So you can also, in general, if you have something that you're looking for from an help center perspective, you can always go back and search the knowledge base as well for information.
All right, thank you, Michael. I found this better way of displaying the questions. Apparently, not exactly a pro using Slido, but still learning. On this fresh and empty database question, I think we'll mark that as answered. The next question comes up: how to reset passwords in an Aura instance. So for folks who aren't familiar, when you create an Aura instance, it gives you a username and password up front, and it warns you. It says to save that password because you're going to need it later in order to connect to your instance. Michael, do you want to take this one?
Yeah. Okay, so I'll take this one as well. 1 second. Cool. So this database is still loading, I guess. Yeah, so we can go to another one. So in general, as before, you would say password reset should be an So there are two levels of passwords, right? One is the access to the Aura console itself, where you basically can request a password reset. And the other one is basically reset your password through support. So you send an email to support or a ticket to support, and they reset your password as such. So they also say here you can download the latest dump and import it into another instance. So that's something that you can do when you can't access your instance. You can always use here in the three dots, it's clone to new, and then you basically can take your database content and create a new instance for it with a new password. If you still have access to your database, then you can do the following. If you just want to change your password, so let me just get this password. 1 second. So I had this really long password here from Aura, and what I can do now is in my Aura database, I can say use the system database and then say alter user Neo4j set password to test or secret. Right. So, and then it changes my user here. And if I do a server disconnect, I can basically say secret is my new password and log in with my new password. Oh, this is the exclamation mark. Sorry. So, right. So that's something, if you still have access to your database, then you can use the system database and say auto user. Otherwise, send either an email to or a ticket to Aura support, or use this clone to new instance, basically, which gives you a new password and a new connection string for your database. I think the Aura team is working on adding this reset password feature to the console in one of the next iterations as such. So that's something that should make it easier. Actually, then hopefully from here somewhere you will be able to reset your password as such. So let's see. Cool. I think that's
all right.
it for that.
Thanks for that, Michael. So there are still a couple of questions coming in about ODBC and the Windows driver. Maybe we want to take those and then come back to the Dataframes question. Is that okay?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So I linked inside of one of these questions the full PDF documentation of the ODBC driver here. Typically, the way that you're going to connect is by creating a data source name, like most people who are using the ODBC driver are using so in Windows. And so this documentation is going to cover how to set the data source. In that, it's going to have a lot of additional options that you can set. And this is where it includes things like the logging settings we were discussing a little bit earlier. In this PDF documentation, which I linked on the question, it's this URL right here. You'll see that there is configuring logging options on Windows. Now, as we're going through these questions, trying to answer these detailed questions about ODBC, there's a possibility that the answer I'm going to give you is not going to be quite correct, because it's going to depend on local server machine. If I'm not giving you the answer, then the step afterwards is to configure these logging options, like for example, to the debug level, set the log level to debug at the log path field, and this is all described in the PDF, and then it's going to dump those log files like we were discussing earlier, and you're going to be able to do that from there. Now, going back to these questions, when using the web instance of Neo4j and its addresses, so the question here is asking about the web instance. Now, the BI connector makes a bolt connection to Neo4j. So the host name like this is one to be using. Just the raw host name like this. If there is a host error, then it could be that the host was improperly specified, or otherwise you need to go into the logs to figure out what's going on there. The host error could be any number of different things. Like some customers have problems with firewalling, so they can't get packets to and from. Others might have SSL resolution issues. And so if it isn't clear from the error message, we're going to need to go into the logs. You can request support from Neo4j through your support channels if you're an existing enterprise customer, and they can connect you with the engineers that build this. Related to this is the question of what are the credentials to use in the ODBC connector. It's definitely just your regular username and password. But you might not want to use Windows authentication from your actual Windows machine. You're going to want to use this basic authentication method, which is outlined in these documentation. So if I remember correctly, and it's been a while since I did this on the Windows side, there's just a box where you put those things in, and it's going to be the same username and password that you would use if you were using Neo4j browser or Bloom or anything like that. And the result of that is that the ODBC driver for Neo4j is literally built on top of our Java driver, and so it works pretty much exactly as our Java driver does, just with extra software to do the SQL bits. Now, I understand that I might not exactly be answering this question because I have a sense that in your case, it's going to take generating those log files and then looking into those log files either on your own or with Neo4j support to resolve this. But for specifying all of these options, okay, like a couple of simple things. You're using the right host name. You want to use just regular username and password, basic authentication, not Windows domain authentication, and kind of go from there. Now, the last word here is like web instance. I want to make sure the questioner understands we're typically not connecting to Neo4j browser using the BI connector. We're connecting to the Bolt port. So that's port 7687. And the web instance doesn't really come into it. I hope this helps a little bit, maybe points the right direction, even if it doesn't immediately resolve this issue for you. But I think this about covers these three questions. Is there anything you would want to add here, Michael? Oh, Michael, I think you're muted.
Yeah, so I think that covers it. I think the only thing that was confusing to me when I first heard the question was the localhost bit, that there's no connection to localhost. So there, as you said, the user should probably check their host name and see if there's anything going on with the host name information.
So work on the simple things first before you get to the complicated things. One kind of exotic thing I've seen come up with Neo4j in the past is there's a default listen address. Sometimes people will set this setting incorrectly, and so Neo4j is running, but it's not listening on the right port and in the right host name. They might be listening on a different network device, and as a result, they can't connect even when the database is available. That's a setting to double check is default listen address.
Yep.
So the next question deals with Pandas Dataframes. Okay, so just to introduce this question, I'll let Michael take it. He's got some code here. Pandas is a library in Python that people use for manipulating data structures, particularly rows and columns of data. And we've recently made some changes to our Neo4j Python driver layer that allows you to better use Pandas. Now, the questioner asked a question and was on our support community, referring to support articles from like a year or two ago. That's before any of this driver stuff happened. And I think the questioner was getting the wrong idea about how to use this stuff based on old advice on the community forums. So, Michael, do you want to take this one?
Yeah. I'll do that. But before we go there, I just wanted to report back that our Aura instance has gotten its data back, or its snapshot loaded. And now if you're looking into the server, it's all empty. And if I run this statement, then there's no data in here anymore. So importing our empty file basically reset the database to the beginning as such. Right. So it took a little bit of time, but now it's all good. Super. Connecting with Python. So there are two aspects to it. One is the following. As David said, I got some code here. So basically, this code, I hope this is readable. So it's basically we install the current Python driver. You really need to use the current, so the latest one, which is 4.4 something.
Yeah, 4.4.2, I think.
Let's see, Neo4j on PyPy is 4.4.3 is the latest one. So you have to install that, and then you can connect to your Neo4j database as usual. So you basically import graph database, you import pandas, and then connect to your database. So this is one of my Aura databases here. And then I just run a query against this database. So in this case, I didn't use a transaction function here, but just to illustrate running query and getting results. And so I just run this query, and then what happens, you get this driver result back. And in this version, it's basically still experimental, but it will be released in the 5.0 version of the driver officially and documented as well. There's a toDataFrame method now on result. And this toDataFrame gives you a data frame back, right? So you get this data frame back, which you then can use with however you use data frames in general as well. And so you can do everything you can do with data frames as such. So that's kind of the new thing. I think if I run this again, let me just connect to this database. So it has got a new password, which we just set, which is secret, right? So just let's connect. So we get our result again. And so if I call result toDF, then it will return our data frame. Right? And you get the warning about this experimental feature. So if I run this again, there's also result.data, if I'm not mistaken, which is a list of dictionaries. And I think you can just create a new data frame from this data as well. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, yeah. So you can basically, something that you also can do in previous versions is basically call just result.data, get the data as a list of dictionaries, and then basically just create a new data frame with this result that you get back there. So that's something that has already always worked basically even in the past as such. And the toDF is basically just a convenience function that wraps this into a single call as such. The other thing that I wanted to show you is actually also really interesting. So the graph data science team for Neo4j has created a new graph data science client, which sits on top of the Python driver, which is really interesting. And they also if you go to the AuraDS docs, so let's see, if you go to Neo4j Aura docs and then you go to AuraDS here, then you see this connecting to AuraDS. And there's connecting with Python. This is the page that I was on. And here's the Google Colab notebook, which I just opened and changed a little bit. So we need to update our super secret password here. So we can actually connect with this graph data science client, which then allows us also to do something like run Cypher. So basically a simplified call for, I think this supports read and write calls. But this can run Cypher, and then this returns directly also a data frame as well. Right, so that's the other thing that I just realized when we were talking about this before, David, that the GDS client actually also supports data frame results directly as such. And then, of course, you can do all the other GDS awesomeness with running algorithms and so on. Right? So there's much more to be had with the GDS client, but it can also provide data frames in general. All the other functionality is available in AuraDS and in instances that have the graph data science library installed as such. So to recap, the default option that already worked before is just calling result.data and creating a new data frame from it. That's something that always worked. In the future, you will be able to also call result.df. And if you're also doing data science related things in Neo4j, then check out the Graph Data Science client. There's also a separate documentation for it in more detail that explains installation, get started, how to use it, and so on. And that allows you also to not just get data frames, but also to call graph algorithms and machine learning pipelines directly from Python, which is really nice. I think that's it for the data frame question. Anything that you want to add, David, or?
No, I think that about covers it. Other than you know, I think we're going to see Neo4j spending a lot of time on those Python bindings and wrappers. We know that Python is just an extremely popular way of people using graphs and mixing and matching data from different sources, working together with GDS and all sorts of other things. So, I mean, I was very happy to see some of that support come in, and I think we're likely to press on it going forward. And honestly, Michael, that's our last question for today. Is there anything that you'd like to raise, or maybe any demos? What's on your mind in the community?
There is something that I wanted to share, which is, as some of you might have seen, Alex and I are running these live streams on Mondays where we explore different kinds of data sets with AuraDB. And this is usually a quite good way of getting your hands dirty with like importing data, getting up to speed, running some queries against it, using Bloom for visualizing it. And usually we also have on the GitHub repository write-ups for the, when I get to it, write-ups for the sessions. So for instance, for this week's, because it's also current, so we have Graph Connect also coming up, right? So so we basically imported the Graph Connect talks into Neo4j and then ran a bunch of queries and visualizations on top of it. So if you're interested to come to Graph Connect, we're giving away 10 free tickets. So if you email to me at michael@neo4j.com, I'll get you one of these 10 free tickets if you come in time. And so here we basically walk through the data modeling, data import, and so on, exploration, data exploration, some recommendation things, and then at the end, Bloom exploration as well. So usually these sessions are lots of fun. And if you haven't watched any of those, we have all the recordings on this page here. If you go to video/discover Aura free with fun datasets, then you can see them, and we share quite a bit of tips and tricks as well. One thing that might be good to know for those of you who have been using Aura before is that the UI changed a little bit. So it's no longer like the drop down with the different tools, but it's now query for writing separate queries, explore for visual exploration, and data importer or import for data importer. And data importer is actually quite nice because it allows you to visually model a graph and import it into your database. So for instance, in this example, I can just upload my model with data. Let me do this here. Discover Aura free data importer Graph Connect. So it has like all the files here, my CSV files for Graph Connect talks and the model. And then if I click on run import, I just have to provide my password again. 1 second. And then I can run this import. And it just takes 5 seconds or so to import the data. And then we should be able to see the results. So it took 11 seconds. But you see it imports all the data from our Graph Connect talks. And if I go back to my instance, you will now see that all these relationships are in here in terms of like talks, speakers, topics, industries, and so on. So that's a really good and easy way of getting data into AuraDB. If you haven't seen it before, that's something that's really, really easy and useful to model your data and import your data in one go. and then you can start working on that as well. That was the other thing that I wanted to share as well.
All right.
All right. I have one more thing to add. If you are having questions and are wondering where to go, and if this is too far spaced out for you because it's a monthly thing, you can obviously go to our community page, community.neo4j.com, or chat on Discord, where you have a friendly Neo4j graphs community. Exactly, that's where you find it from Aura, and can ask your questions there and interact with the community. So there's lots of people around that can help and are willing to support you if you have questions.
Actually, that's a good point, Alex, because looking at this GitHub menu, what we now have here as well is Graph Academy, which was recently added as a link here. So you also find Graph Academy, and what's really nice about Graph Academy, it gives you like introductory material, like Neo4j fundamentals, Data fundamentals, the data importer, CSV import things are covered. But what's also really cool from a developer perspective, it has now already 4 out of 5 application development courses. So you can build applications with Go, Java, JavaScript, Python, and Node, and .NET is coming up very soon, and GraphQL as well. So that's also something if you want to build applications with Neo4j. And if you want to go rather the data science route, there are also data science courses now here for ORDS as well. So definitely check out the Graph Academy, which you now can also find through this head menu as well. Both that and the community side as well.
Yep.
So, before we sign off, like I can't even believe that we neglected to mention this up top, Alex, but next week is Graph Connect in Austin, Texas. There is still time for folks who are interested to register and come see us at the Fairmont in Austin. Michael and I are both going to be there. We're going to have a dev zone as part of our conference floor. The entire developer relations team at Neo4j is basically going to be there. Just kind of, we love to shoot the breeze with people who are building graph applications, help figure out what you're doing and how we can do it better and so forth. So if you have a chance to come see us in Austin, please do. It's going to be a great time. Lots of different announcements and lots of activity from our broader community. Some of our best users and the folks that you see out there in public most frequently about Neo4j will also be there. So it'd be great to say hello to people.
Yeah. And if you need help with tickets, we can also help you get discounted tickets for Graph Connect as well, as a special service to our community.
Yep. Yeah, we have a discount, and obviously Michael has a raffle going on. So just to repeat, if you use Community 50 and don't want to rely on luck, that gives you 50% off. And if you want to try with the luck way, then write an email to michael@neo4j.com. And you might get a free ticket.
Exactly. And one last thing is probably if you want to see past editions of the office hours, there should be an office hours playlist somewhere on YouTube, I think, right, Alex?
There isn't one particularly for the office hours, but that's a good point. I probably should create one. It's currently hidden somewhere in some other playlist, which is not that useful. So I'll create one for sure and add it to this video as a follow-up.
Cool. Sounds good.
Okay. With that, I
All
think
right.
no more questions came in the meantime. So I think we can close it for today. Thank you particularly David and Michael for answering the questions and for helping everybody.
Sure.
Everybody else, thank you for watching. We hope to see you next week in Austin. If not, then some other time, hopefully. If you are interested in what's coming up in the live stream program, Florent is doing his final episode on PHP and Neo4j tomorrow, tomorrow afternoon Central European time. So if you're interested in that, tune in for this tomorrow. And then we are looking forward to Graph Connect, I guess. So that's where where we will be. And other than that, nothing more to add. Stay safe, everybody. Take care, and yeah, hope to see you soon. Bye bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye bye.
Thank you all. See you.